Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we're going to do a day 2 review of some of the races that happened at Leopardstown. There was a few that didn't really interest me, notably the Handicaps, which is normally the opposite for me. I'm normally more interested in the Handicaps than the graded events, but it was the graded events that were of interest today. And I think they were all won by, just flicking through them, the best horse. Where what they do future-wise is where the questions arise. And we'll start off with the Lavrox Novice Chase, the 2 mile 5 that Galopin Des Champs won. Now, he won it quite impressively. It was made easier with the fall of Beacon Edge and the unseat of Capodanno, but Galopin Des Champs probably made those errors for those two horses by going so fast. I thought it was interesting, a little bit after the race, they spoke to Willie Mullins, and he said a lot of the jockeys said that was one of the fastest chases they've ever rode in. You know, they were obviously going fast, and yet Galopin Des Champs, whilst he made a couple of little minor mistakes, didn't make those that Beacon Edge made and that Capodanno made. And that's why if I owned the horse, I would be looking at the Turner Novices. You've got the pace, clearly. It's one of the fastest races they've ridden in. So he's clearly got the pace. And Bob Olinger just looks a little bit suspect with his jumping. So take on a horse that has suspect jumping. From a betting perspective, I hope that Galopin Des Champs runs in the 3 mile, the Festival Novices Chase, because we've got Bob Olinger in the Turner and Ahoy Senor in the Festival Novices. And I'd be more confident on Bob Olinger winning this race, the Turner Novices, if Galopin Des Champs wasn't there, than I would Ahoy Senor if Galopin Des Champs wasn't there. So from a betting perspective and my own personal perspective, I want to see Galopin Des Champs in the 3 mile race because I think I can get one winner and one that might be able to put up a fight, rather than having a good fight between Galopin Des Champs and Bob Olinger. You know, I'm not sure who would win that. And Ahoy Senor might win, but could still find Brave Man's Game, or there's a couple of others that are interesting in that. Capodanno could go there, for example, or Jungle Boogie. So when I tweet sometimes that I don't see any reason for Galopin Des Champs to step up, it's not always from a betting perspective. It's not always from what I want to bet on. It's what I would do if I was the owner. And there's a difference, I think, in terms of actually looking at a race from having, especially from if you've had a bet, and whether you think they are the right horse for that race. You know, sometimes it's not always that they need to step up in trip, but if they do, they could have an easier race to win. So for me, I hope he actually does step up in trip because I think we can get a win from Bob Olinger. But if I owned the horse, I wouldn't be afraid of Bob Olinger. I would take on Bob Olinger and try and get Bob Olinger to make mistakes. You know, if you're going fast, if you've been involved in a race that some of the jockeys have come back and said was one of the fastest races they've ever ridden in, why on earth do you then step him up in trip? Stick to that trip, get everything off the bridle, get them making mistakes. If your asset is your jumping, your asset, you need to make that the big thing in the race. Well, the shorter races where they go faster is where you see the jumping. When everything's going slower, a lot of them will be able to jump fine. But when they're going quicker, that's when technique actually comes into it. Moving on to the Dublin Chase, I thought Chacun Pour Soi was good. I actually don't think Chacun Pour Soi will turn up in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. I think they will literally send Shishkinovic against Inogamine. There'll be a few others to try and get the places, and I think they'll keep Chacun Pour Soi back for Punchestown, personally. He beat Dunvegan in the end with Captain Guinness. They're not good enough to be champion chase horses. Grianatines clearly ran a really poor race. The Nichols factor still hasn't... it's not finished for Nichols in terms of his poor run. I know he had a winner or two yesterday, but yeah, his horses are running rather poorly. The 3 o'clock was won by Honeysuckle. She wins the champion hurdle. Move on. The 3:35 is probably where the most talking points come from, and Sir Gerhard was the winner of the Tattersalls Irish Novice Hurdle. Now, this used to be the Chanel Farmer and also the Deloitte. When it was the Deloitte Hurdle, it was actually over 2 mile 2, but it will still be interesting looking at a statistic in a minute. I thought Sir Gerhard he did make most of the running, or all of the running. He made a couple of mistakes, but was still too good. And if you actually look back, bar Three Stripe Life, who tried to go with Sir Gerhard, Colonel Mustard was comfortably beaten. The rest were miles behind. You know, my mate Mozzie, who I thought had come into the race in quite good form and had looked at a good horse, was not even in picture. And I actually think this was just a really good performance from Sir Gerhard, and Three Stripe Life and Colonel Mustard have run really good races rather than the rest running really poorly. Now, where do I think they should send Sir Gerhard? Well, I think Willie Mullins should look at this. When he's won the Chanel Farmer or the Deloitte Hurdle, and he sent them to the Supreme, they've had 4 wins and a fourth. The fourth was the steer in Forlonge, who obviously jumps out to the right and ruins his own chance. When he sent his 3 winners to the Ballymore, pulled up 3rd and 7th, and when he sent his horse to the Albert Bartlett, it fell. What's the reason to go to the Ballymore? I really don't think there is. Paul Townend has said he felt Sir Gerhard jumped better when he had company, so he'll get that with John Bond, Constitution Hill, and potentially Dysart Dynamo. Talking of Dysart Dynamo, though, I have a feeling that he might be the one stepped up in trip. The reason for that is Nicky Henderson doesn't mind running 2 in the same race. He had Altior and Bouvier, and he had Sprinter Sacre and Spirit Sun, both in the Supreme Novice. What has Willie Mullins run in the Supreme Novice that has been of the same level as the other horses in the race? He won it last year with Appreciate It. His second horse in the race was Blue Lord, who went off 11-1. He's had Elixir Dene go off 16-1. He had Aramon go off 8-1. All of these horses had also been beaten in their season coming up to it. So it was almost like I might as well run him there rather than I really need to find the best race for him. Bunk Off Early had finished second in this race, went to Cheltenham at 6-1, but was still disappointing. Bell's Hill went off 11-1. Shane's Hill went off 9-1. Wicklow Brave went off 8-1, despite having a string of wins next to his name. I don't think he often sends what he thinks are future champion hurdle horses. Did any of those win a champion hurdle? No. In terms of, okay, but you need to have the type of horse that stays well in the Supreme Novice. Well, they're thinking about Sir Gerhard for the Ballymore, because he has that bit of stamina as well. You look at his last 2 winners, Appreciate It. At the beginning of the season, Willie Mullins was suggesting he could be the Ballymore, maybe an Albert Bartlett type. He thought he had that much stamina. They ran him in the Supreme and he used his early pace and his stamina to win comfortably. Granted, it may not have been that good when you look behind. Ballyadam was second and he got beat today in a handicap. Classical Dream, similarly, won a Supreme Novice before then being, this season and last season has been stepped up to 3 mile. So he had that stamina to win racing prominently. That's what Sir Gerhard has. So that's why I think Sir Gerhard should run here, along with that stat there. 4 out of his last 5 winners from the Chanel Farmer Deloitte Hurdle to go on to run at the Cheltenham Festival in the Supreme Novice have won. And also, I don't think Willie Mullins will send both of them. If you actually have a look at the Ballymore as well, if we take out Sir Gerhard, what has Willie Mullins got for the Supreme Novice? For the Ballymore? Manila Kakuna won yesterday, probably going to go up in trip. Then we're looking at maybe Walking on Air. He's going to want one near the front of the market. And I think you'll see both of these in different races. And I think you'll see Sir Gerhard in the Supreme and Dysart Dynamo in the Ballymore. One final thing I wanted to talk that I thought was quite funny. I asked a question. If Constitution Hill, John Bond, Sir Gerhard and Dysart Dynamo all ran in the Supreme Novices Hurdle, what price would be the biggest of the 4? What price would the biggest of those 4 go off at? Also, who would it be? Mr. Brian Neary replied, Constitution Hill 5-2 on the day. Henderson reckons he is the new Altior. So is he the biggest price? So I asked that. Constitution Hill goes off 5-2 with all other 3 shorter. Goes off favourite. Sir Gerhard will go to the Ballymore. I'm assuming he's saying Sir Gerhard runs in the Ballymore instead. So I said, so the answer to my question, who goes off the biggest price of the 4 if they all ran in Supreme? He still doesn't answer. John Bond, 5-1, assuming Sir Gerhard runs in the Ballymore. So I then asked him again, and then he got rude about it. Yeah. What I was trying to get at there is I was asking that question because if Sir Gerhard and Dysart Dynamo both ran in the race, they would both be 5-1 or shorter. Willie Mullins has never had that. And that's why I think it's important. And that's why I think they will be split up. And that's why I think Sir Gerhard goes to the Supreme and Dysart Dynamo has stepped up to the Ballymore. I hope that gives you something to think about, some interesting thoughts there. In terms of, obviously, we've got Sir Gerhard for the Supreme Novice, and that's not why I'm talking Sir Gerhard up for the Supreme Novice. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, sometimes you can talk a horse based on what you actually think rather than what you've actually bet on. And that's why I think Galopin Des Champs would be better over the 2-5, or the 2-4, rather than the 3. But in this instance, I do believe Sir Gerhard would be better over the 2 mile, and we've had a bet on Sir Gerhard over the 2 mile. Hope you had a great day. I'm sure lots of people did, because I think there was four or five favourites go in at Leopardstown, and I think it's all systems go now to Cheltenham, isn't it? It's 5 weeks? Is it 5 weeks Tuesday? Which is awesome. It's getting closer.